what advice and tips would you give to an agent on selling more final expense and being consistent week in and week out?
You hear people say it, but it's so true. We're not in the insurance business. We're not in the final expense business. We're in the people business. And final expense is very easy to sell when you understand that, because all you got to do is find out who they love. And then it's really simple at that point. If you love somebody, if something happens to you, do you want a good outcome for them or a bad outcome for them? Plain and simple. Because if you want a bad outcome, that's easy. Do nothing. I'll see you on the news having fish fries and car washes and GoFundMe accounts. That's easy. Just don't do anything. If you love your family, you got to make a move. And the good news is you've been doing it for decades anyway. You've been putting them through house and college and this and that. So go out like a champ. Do the same thing when you pass that you did when you were alive. And that's the final expense sale. If they don't have somebody that they love, you can't sell them insurance. Bottom line.
Welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. Excited for a special guest today. I cannot believe he's not been on the channel before, because I've known him for years. He's freaking impressive, and the organization they are building is absolutely full of rock star amazing people. As I've been out of the country with this group multiple times, to Orlando, etc. I think Dominican, Cabo, Henry. I don't even know where all we've been, man. But welcome to the podcast.
Hey man, glad to be here, and I'm glad to know that I'm a power. I thought maybe I was just a player. Maybe I wasn't a power player because you didn't have me on the channel. Now I feel elevated. I've been promoted.
I mean, power player of all power players. It was almost like I don't know if I can even get. The thought. I was like, Henry is so impressive, and they're building such a gigantic organization. I don't know if I can actually get Henry on the channel for the podcast,
okay.
To take it like the other direction, right? Either way, man, I love that you're here, and I appreciate your time.
Oh man, I appreciate the invitation, and you are
Absolutely.
Great. We've been rocking and rolling for years, so glad to be here. And I'm probably just as happy to be here as you are to have me here, maybe more so.
Dude, I love it, man. Well, it's for those that don't know, SLS, Senior Life Services, they were at Vero Beach, Florida. They were probably going to do like 40 million in final expense ish this year.
Right.
Mostly over the phone, still some field. Super impressive organization. Henry's the president of sales and marketing and the chief visionary officer. And Henry, I kind of want to dive into your story a little bit for those that don't know you. I feel like they should, because you spoke at some of our events. You just spoke at 8% virtual. You're going to be speaking at some 8% real road shows and other events in the near future, main 8% in the near future, et cetera. For those that don't know your story, I've got to hear it a lot because you're an amazing speaker. When you get in front of people, you absolutely deliver. Great storyteller. Not to put pressure on you today, but either way, you'll bring it home strong. For those that don't know you, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you and your journey, what got you into insurance, what it was like for a while, et cetera. So,
well, where do I begin? You ask a big old broad question like that. I'm getting old, man. I'm almost half a century, so my story gets longer every time you ask. But I'm probably just somebody who can relate to a lot of folks that might be listening to this at some point. Because I've won some, I've lost some, and I've just been lucky enough to win just a little bit more than I've lost. And so I'm on the winning side of things right now. But growing up, very humble beginnings. Grew up with a family of 7 kids. It was 9 of us in total, mom, dad, and 7 kids. I'm the second oldest in the pecking order there. And had a lot of solid financial times. My dad had a traditional job, actually sold for Frito-Lay back in the day.
Okay.
And decided that he was going to be capped. So he says, I'm going to enter the exciting world of entrepreneurship. And that's when our childhood got exciting, because as my dad was having his adventures, trying to be an entrepreneur up in Buffalo, New York, which was known for, blue collar jobs, his concept of owning his own business was strange, especially to my family. So I grew up with exposure to that. Matter of fact, my first exposure to the insurance industry was me making a solemn vow that I would never be in the insurance industry. Because my dad, he started selling insurance and had a lot of success. Then he had a bunch of chargebacks. Then I learned a new word called repossession, because his Cadillac sedan DeVille that was bought. I said, Dad, somebody stole the car. He said, not quite. So I learned what repossession means. Like, man, I don't know what insurance is, but whatever it is, I ain't doing that, because it gets your car taken up the driveway. So over the years, I did a lot of other stuff. I had success in real estate. I had success in IT. And my dad passed at 56. This is back in 2002. And my brothers and sisters at that time, I kind of became the quasi dad. You can never replace your dad, but I was the oldest brother. So at this point, we're all 20s and in that range, and we're trying to figure out what can we do with our lives. I'm trying to figure out what can my brothers and sisters do to be successful. I was doing a lot of stuff that you could do well individually, flipping houses, had my IT company, but it's not really something that my family could fit into. So I get the bright idea that we're all going to get our insurance license. So we do. So we all get our insurance license, and by the time we get to, say, I don't know, 2006 or so, everybody's licensed. We're all working together. I'm back in selling final expense and Medicare Advantage. Sold a bunch of that, Medicare supplements. Had a really good ride, but then the partnership that I was in, it kind of just went to the left a little bit. And as it went to the left, right around that same time, CMS is changing the rules on Medicare, and the dialer laws are changing on auto dialers. So all these things converge, and I end up failing in the life insurance industry, looking for another home, end up at SLS, and I'm here now. And what I've been doing up to this point is pretty much taking the things that are in that journey of ups and downs and selling life insurance and selling other ventures and trying to be an entrepreneur, and using those experiences, hopefully, so people can learn from my experience instead of learning from their own. So you don't have to touch fire to know it's hot. Just, I'll let you know, it'll burn you.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Dude, that was such a good like lead up timeline wise to your story. I appreciate that. There's several things I want to dive into, if I may, just story wise in the past. I took a bunch of notes really quick that I was just impressed with. I'm an active writing listener. When you said you've won a little bit more than you've lost, how true do you think that is for other entrepreneurs, and why most people fail is they don't realize that you have to lose a lot, and they can't handle all the failure, rejection, and losing that just long enough to finally reach the 3 feet of gold and actually start to succeed?
I think it's very common. Winning and losing is a coin flip. Sometimes you think about a sports game and you say, hey, that game could have went either way. And the team that lost didn't play bad, just like I got the last shot. Or so sometimes in life, it's the same thing. You're like, oh, I'm just suffocated by this loss. You played a good game. And so you got to kind of mentally stay in there. But I think a lot of people are affected by that.
Yeah, I do too. What about like growing up with 6 siblings? What was that like? Because here's what I'm looking for. So I'm the oldest of 4, 3 younger sisters. I had to be in control and keep them in order, obviously, but also get picked on by 3 other people. I saw them get raised sometimes a little bit more lenient than I was, but I was also got my butt beat when I got in trouble, which also makes me appreciate discipline and structure a little bit, and people not just do whatever they want. What was that like for you?
No, I'm very much a product of my environment and where I rank in the kids. So to give you a little more background, my oldest sister, she actually passed in 1993. She had sickle cell, which, if you're not familiar with sickle cell, is a terminal illness. So we knew our whole relationship growing up together that, her life expectancy was not, she was not expected to live long. And so we kind of knew that. I had cousins and other family members who had passed from the disease. So while my mom was deep in homeopathic medicine and, natural remedies, and of course, following the science of the doctors, it was kind of a stressful way to grow up, wondering, is this the year that you lose your sister? So she was the oldest in rank, but I was kind of the oldest in authority, if you will. So there were 4 girls. And so for most of my life, I was the general, because there's always boys sniffing around, and I knew what boys were up to because I was one all my life. So that protective instinct definitely carried it into my business life, because I've always tried to have a lot of respect for other people. I'm kind of used to authority. My dad had a family business. I was actually managing grown men from the time I was 16 years old. So it taught me how to respect someone that's in authority to me, but at the same time exercise authority over them. And a lot of that I learned from being the second oldest. Then my brothers finally came along. They were towards the end I was praying every time my sister was born. I was praying for a brother. And finally, my dreams came true for the last 2 kids. But that responsibility that my parents placed on me, it did 2 things. Number one, it governed my behavior, because I knew I was a role model for my brothers and sisters. I couldn't be doing stupid stuff in the streets, because they'd find out about it, and then they'd be doing stupid stuff in the streets. And then that ability to kind of not only kind of be the captain, if you will, of the ship, it taught me something else too. I was a snitch. Cody, you would have hated me if you were growing up. But I was a snitch for all the right reasons, because I learned early keeping things from my parents didn't make anything better. The faster my parents could be aware of a potential problem, and my brothers and sisters came to appreciate it later in life. And I would tell them, I'm going to tell on you. We can go do it together, but I'm doing it because I love you. So that childhood, it taught me discipline and authority, and taught me humility and power, not abusive of power at all. It was a good, I'm glad I was second oldest.
Yeah. And then you were able to continue that into entrepreneurship. Your dad was an entrepreneur in Buffalo. You had exposure to it. He started selling insurance. You got a bunch of chargebacks. Car was taken away. Insurance equals losing the family car. How do you overcome that and never wanting to do insurance and doing all these other things to eventually giving insurance a look like he did?
So it's interesting. There was a private golf course. Now you gotta look at my age. So there was a private golf course as I was growing up, and the rules were a little bit different back then. So you could exclude certain people for whatever reasons, and it took a while for that to change. But I used to sneak on said golf course because I noticed that in the parking lot, I saw a bunch of Volvos, Mercedes, BMWs, and these were all cars that I wanted back in the day. So I'm like, somebody over there has got the secret to nice cars. So I would sneak on to there. They would laugh at me like, you realize security's coming to kick you out. I'm like, yeah, but before they do, what do? You do. And I kept hearing doctor, I kept hearing dentist, I kept hearing lawyer, I kept hearing insurance agent. So I'm like, man, you all are doing something different than my dad was doing, because we lost our Cadillac sedan DeVille. It was a gray on maroon. They're like, no, son, here's how you do it. So as they were dragging me off the course, like, thanks, guys, I'll see you next week. But as I did that, I actually became friends with some of those older guys. I was very, very young. And as I went into high school, we kind of stayed in communication, and I found out that there's multiple sides. So everybody doesn't get their car taken in insurance, apparently. And I found that out years ago.
Yeah. You also, where's that drive to learn and be coachable and ask questions and like get around the right people? I feel like that's so true for our industry, of like in any industry where the cream that rises to the top, they're looking for the answers because the answers are out there. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any like special secret sauce that like nobody else can have that like you got to find, you know what I mean? Like, but you were actively seeking information, knowing that maybe the information that you received as a kid, which was good and created discipline, maybe there's some additional layers to the knowledge and information that maybe you didn't have. How did that set you apart? And then also, how do you evaluate others when you talk to them to see if they too are seeking additional information?
Well, for me, my mother always told us, never pretend you know something you don't know. Everybody learns something for the first time. So there's nothing embarrassing about saying, it happens to this day. Somebody will say, they'll give me some acronym. Do you know what FIA means? I'm like, honestly, I don't. Educate me. And my mother always made sure we were avid readers. I learned to read when I was 3 or 4 years old. We had library cards. I know everybody's got Google now, but back then we had the library used to be important. We all had library cards as kids. We would go read books, about a book a week. We had book clubs. We would go do public readings of books of other places. So my mother really cultivated a thirst for knowledge, and my mother cultivated in us. My mother was a researcher, like before researching was cool. So, she knew all about 1-800 numbers to find this in corporate offices and go through. So she kind of created that anything you want to know, the answer's in a book, just find the book. And my dad, he was a big communicator. So he kind of taught us how to ask the questions. So my mom's like, don't be afraid to ask the question. My dad's like, look, here's how you can answer a question without looking stupid. Or here's how you can sit down and shut up and just be educated. So that was a powerful combination. And in this industry, if a lot of people would exercise that same humility, it's like, if you've never made 6 figures before, don't act like you have. Just admit, never did it. All right. And maybe, do you have some tips that can help me? Don't be afraid to ask, and then don't be afraid to listen.
Gosh, that's good, man. That's such good advice. And I like that you took what you taught from your mom and your dad and were able to piece those together and really learn from both. Like, that's awesome. That's really cool. Why, as you start selling final expense, like you try, you're doing final expense, Med Advantage, et cetera, and things change. Why final expense? Because y'all sell a lot. of Final Expense, like one of the most successful organizations in the entire country. With, by the way, I want to add, and you can add to this too, with less active writers, and the average premium per head is way higher than most places too, which we'll dive into. But first, why Final Expense? And then second, how are you able to achieve what you're able to achieve with actually less people?
So the amount of agents that we have is a conscious decision. And that's based on the owner of the agency. His name is Rory Doherty, his philosophy and my philosophy as well, because insurance for me, as I've shared with you, I've lost a lot of people that are close to me. I've lost my dad, I've lost my sister, I lost both of my baby brothers. So I've seen firsthand what death can do to the psyche, to a family, to your pockets. So I wanted to help other people. That's always been a goal of mine, to help them on one of the worst days of their life. But then growing up with my financial situation, I also wanted something that I could help people quickly. So if somebody came to me and said, look, I'm in a bad situation. They're looking for my car right now. I'm hiding it at my mom's house. They got a yellow notice on my door saying the sheriff is coming to kick me out. Do you have a way to save my family quick? And Final Expense is so streamlined that I was able to develop a system that if you come in, follow the system quickly, you can make money fast. So it fulfilled two things I wanted to do. I wanted to help families in a bad situation, and I wanted to create a financial pathway for kids like me that were growing up trying to figure it out. Like, I always wanted to be rich. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I wanted to. I knew the beginning was to want to do it.
I love that.
And if I can be a job creator and a dream creator for other people, then that was cool for us. So with that being the case, I knew I could get rich by throwing a bunch of people against the wall and see who sticks. So I'm pretty good. I got a decent mouthpiece. I could go out there, sell a dream, and hey, come one, come all. But I know I never want to bring more people than I can support. So we made a decision that we're going to get a smaller group of people, and we're going to find out what their dreams are, and then we're going to show them how to use Final Expense to accomplish that. So that not just, we always use the analogy of, if you have an SLS event, I don't want you to look in the parking lot and say, well, I know that's Henry's car. I want enough nice cars up there that you're like, which one is Henry's? Or maybe that's Jennifer's, or maybe that's Tanya's. So if you're at a place and the only nice car in the parking lot is the owner, you might want to reevaluate.
And I can vouch for the fact that when I'm at an SLS event in Florida, when a lot have driven to the event, I can't tell you whose cars are nice. They're just a bunch of freaking nice cars everywhere, bro. Like, it's awesome. Yeah. And I'm over there like oohing and ahhing, like, dang, I don't have that kind of, I don't have that one. I like that one. Oh, I wish I had that one. Like, it's cool.
Well, you're doing all right with that Porsche over there.
That's true.
I don't know, man. You're not too envious.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. I do want to add too, like you mentioned Rory. Love Rory. Wine connoisseur, a gentleman with an amazing, huge heart that really cares and has decades and decades and decades of experience. You've got Grant, you've got James, you've got the whole like home office staff, Teresa, et cetera. Like, just, I could keep listing names, but amazing organization and a bunch of awesome people. And
people ask sometimes, they say, well, Henry, why don't you start your own agency? And I have the mental capacity to do that. I got the experience to do that, but I actually enjoy working with a group of people. One of the things that I told Rory, when you can make money, have fun around people that you like, that's really living. It's not even business anymore. It's just life. So I believe in that community, that team concept. Don't be a lone wolf.
Yes. Everybody enjoys they do enjoy the team concept. Deep down, they really, really do. Where does your, I got probably three more questions. One is, where does your confidence come from that you have a lot of belief in yourself? You knew as a kid, which I can relate to, by the way, like I knew young, I was going to be successful and figure it out. Where does that come from for you?
For me, I just, I got to go back to my parents. My parents, we didn't have a lot, but we knew a lot. And we really were taught that knowledge is power. And my father and mother used to actively preach to us, you're going to be better than us. You're going to have more than us. You're going to do more. And when you do it, we're going to be the happiest folks in the world, because that's the name of this game, surpass us. And so they celebrated all my little victories, man. Were celebrated. I don't care if I got an A on my report card. I don't care if I tied my shoe. It was like, hey, man, you're the best shoe tire this side of the Mississippi. So my parents instilled a lot of confidence. And then also, too, you start to get around others. and you step into the universe with all this self-esteem and all this self-confidence, and it translates to accomplishment. So you start winning stuff. And so when you win a lot of stuff, you start to view yourself as a winner. So I started realizing I'm pretty strong. I'm stronger than this guy, faster than this guy. I think I might be maybe even smarter than this guy. And you don't want to get arrogant to where you let that fill your head up. But at the same time, you don't want to tear yourself down either. Like if you're good at something, let yourself be good at it, and then find the things that you're good at it and explore it. And so that's the confidence came from childhood, and then creating these wins, having these wins celebrated, amassing these wins, and then figuring out, hey man, I must be pretty good at this.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was telling my team that this morning. I'm like, hey, confidence is the memory of success. You know, like it's the more wins you get, the more confident you become. Just like you say. What advice and tips would you give to an agent on selling more final expense and being consistent week in and week out?
If you want to sell more final expense, talk to more people. That's the first thing. You know, sales is math, and a lot of times people want to be these great closers. And, you know, you're not going to sell a bunch of final expense trying to go 1 for 2 making sales. You need mass contact. So if you want to sell a lot of final expense, make sure that you're setting yourself up to win. Know your numbers. So if you have a certain closing percentage or what have you, make sure that you walk into your day understanding that. But the number one thing you got to realize is that you hear people say it, but it's so true. We're not in the insurance business. We're not in the final expense business. We're in the people business. And final expense is very easy to sell when you understand that, because all you got to do is find out who they love. And then it's really simple at that point. If you love somebody, if something happens to you, do you want a good outcome for them or a bad outcome for them? Plain and simple. Because if you want a bad outcome, that's easy. Do nothing. I'll see you on the news having fish fries and car washes and GoFundMe accounts. That's easy. Just don't do anything. If you love your family, you got to make a move. And the good news is you've been doing it for decades anyway. You've been putting them through house and college and this and that. So go out like a champ. Do the same thing when you pass that you did when you were alive. And that's the final expense sale. If they don't have somebody that they love, you can't sell them insurance. Bottom line.
Amen to that. Also, when I think about SLS, like you'll have created a system where if someone wants to plug in, not have to pay for leads and marketing, and instantly see some success in their first week, 2 weeks, you know, like it's extremely possible and probable in most cases. Why SLS?
A combination of things.
Yeah, just the agent out there that's like, okay, I see it on the polo, I hear about it, Cody likes it, you know, like what's yeah.
Anybody who cuts you a check for anything that you do, the most important name on that check is the signature line. Because that signature line is the honor, ethics, and integrity of that person that determines if that check is even any good. And I know that for a fact because I've had people bounce checks on me several times, Cody. So the name on the signature line, Rory Doherty, is important because he's an honest person. And that honesty trickles down to me as second in command in the organization and to everybody that we touch. So we're not going to lie to you. So one of the most important things about SLS, we're going to tell you the truth. We're not going to, sell you these dreams of, oh, come in, you're going to make $1 million on a part-time schedule. No. Now it's going to require some work. It's going to require some training. There's a learning curve. We're going to manage your expectations. But when you have that honesty, that transparency at the beginning, then all the other stuff is ancillary at that point. Yeah, we got free leads. Yeah, we got great training. Yes, we have a great environment, but you're walking in with your eyes open, and you're walking in with some people who have had success and had failure. They can relate to what you're going through, but more than just relating and everybody crying on everybody's shoulder, we can say, all right, are you done with that? Now here's the path to get out of it. I've walked it. I got the t-shirt. Follow me.
It's good. So good. And if someone's like, you know what, I like Henry, I like the thought of SLS, I like everything we're talking about, and they want to reach out and learn more from you about everything that you do, where should we send them and what should they do?
Believe it or not, I still give out my cell phone, Cody, which is another proof of my honesty. Because if I gave my cell phone out, if I was in trouble, I'd be getting blown up. But you can catch me at 404-372-7765. And you can also follow me. I'm not new to sales, Cody, but I'm new to this social media game. But they tell me SLS Hank Stewart, SLS HANKSTEWART. You can learn more about me there and watch videos and things of that nature, or give me a call.
Boom. I love it. I love that you gave away your cell phone too. That's so awesome. Henry, thank you for being a part of the podcast and phenomenal job today. Appreciate you joining.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the invitation. Keep going and growing. 8% needs to get bigger and bigger, man. These folks need you.
Hey, man, let's do it, man. Give it up for Henry. Let him know in comments below what you thought of today, if you enjoyed today and what you've gotten out today. Also, shoot him a text, man. Someone you can learn from a lot from. Love SLS, love what they're doing. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me on the Power Player podcast. I can't promise the next guest will be as cool as Henry, but either way, we'll make sure they're pretty freaking cool, and we'll see you on the next episode. Adios. Hey, if you enjoyed this, I got another one you're going to love. It's right there. Click on it. See you in there. I'm so excited for today's CA Power Player podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. We got a special guest. He is back on the channel talking about how to sell life insurance from home. Here's what I love about this person. Okay, I'm telling you, this will be one of the best.